It's never good. Sam, how are you, mate? It's good to have you on. We're here with First Point USA and obviously in collaboration with the SW7 Academy. How have you been, mate? How's life treating you?
Yeah, good, thanks. Yeah, it's still involved in rugby, which is nice. I think that's the thing with ex-sportsmen. As long as you stay involved in your sport, it's a much easier transition, life outside. But yeah, so doing my bits with SW7 Academy, involved in Cardiff Rugby still, which is enjoyable, and doing the TV bit. So the season just kicked off for us guys again now, isn't it? So we're sort of nice quiet summer, and it's going to start kicking off again for the new season. So yeah, all good my end. How about you?
I'm all good. Exactly the same as you. Just trying to stay involved and stay in touch somehow. And that for me is all the TV and punditry stuff, which is the next best thing they say. I don't know about that, mate. I'd still like to be playing.
Yeah,
But
I wouldn't mind throwing it about a little bit. There's you still got to get rid of that competitive juice somehow. But I think I see some of the size of the guys now playing. I'm thinking for a few years I thought you're still recently retired. My first 1 or 2 years, I was like, yeah, I could still play. Now I look at the guys, I'm like, did I play against boys that big? I can't imagine that now.
oh no, tell me about it. They're just built differently nowadays. We probably shouldn't start chatting about rugby straight off the bat, but we will because obviously Cardiff, they've recruited pretty well this season. Looking forward to seeing how they go in the URC.
Yeah, well, rugby salaries have the salary cap has dropped significantly in Wales. So we've had to be really smart with recruitment. And to be fair, players have really reset expectations and accepted like drops in pay. But to be able to stay, there's been a lot of loyalty to massive amount of credit to the players. To be fair, so yeah, Cardiff have recruited really well. A lot of come from the English Premiership actually. Good hard
Yeah.
and tough league and. I watched them today actually, and watched the replay of it, and they showed up really well. So yeah, Cardiff have. I mean, it was one of the weaker teams in the league that we beat at game one, but decent, and that's what I'm involved with Cardiff now. I'm involved in
Yeah.
recruitment. So if we need a number 8 for a couple of weeks on short-term loan, I know where to come.
Hey, I'm here. I'm here. And hey, listen, I know it's the first game of the season and it was against Zebra, but you're top of the league. You can't hide it.
We went into today's rugby meeting going, lads, we're top of the league. And we're like, all right, let's make the most of this while we can. Yeah.
Well, just talk to me about the partnership that the SW7 Academy has with First Point USA.
Yeah, the SW7 Academy. Some people might have clicked, given my name Sam Warburton, and I played number 7. But if you don't know rugby, SW7 won't mean much to you. So that's a company that I co-founded, online fitness programs, and we managed to got a great relationship with yourselves, First Point. So I know there's some First Point clients listening to this, but we provide every First Point USA client a sport-specific strength and conditioning program for them to perform virtually from a mobile app, just a training app on your phones. You can train remotely. Now, the reason I love doing that is because particularly in America, strength and conditioning is such a big thing over there, and athleticism, and it's very you only have to watch any sort of documentary and you see how important it is just from the facilities alone that they have and the resources they put into strength and conditioning. I think for young athletes to make an impression, of course, you always focus on skills. That's your priority in your specific sport. But to be able to get 12 months of sport-specific programming under your belt, when you go over to the USA, then you'll be so much more athletically resilient character. When I mean resilient from like injury prevention, but athletically from a strength and power perspective, if that's suitable for your sport, my goodness, the head start you could get on some other athletes. So that's what we do with First Point USA. So clients will know that, but prospective clients won't know. But if they do get on board, they get 12 months of strength and conditioning provided by ourselves online. So it's a great relationship that's been going for, I think, nearly best part of a year, maybe just under a year now, approaching a year probably come end of autumn time, winter. So it's been great and love working with you guys.
I was always, given a sort of plan to stick to when I played professional rugby. Since giving up, I've gone away from that, so I might be logging onto the app pretty soon. But don't go looking at my scores, mate. I know you can keep an eye on what's getting put in there.
I don't want to scare any First Point athletes who don't know, but obviously there's the talent managers who look after each sport. And I said, right, guys, we've had some time to bed this in, but we need to start policing it more now, because you need to be held accountable as a trainer, and as an athlete you'd be held accountable by your coach when you go, well, wherever you train now, but particularly when you go away to the US. So I can click on someone, I can see how many sessions they've performed, how long it's taken, and before they try and click through everything, I can see the duration of the session. So if you try and click through 10 exercises really quick, I can see you've done that session in 3.5 minutes. You haven't actually done it, you know. So it's quite good data. So what we're going to start doing now, I just actually said to the guys recently, we need to come up with almost like a performance review every month. So we'll go through each sport and we'll send the talent managers players almost ranked on, like you could also do like a work ethic rankings. You can see who's been doing the work, you know. So I think we'll start doing that and start pushing the athletes. And that's not to be bad cop, you know. I don't want to be that militant trainer, but it's only because I want them to get best value possible, get the best bang for their buck for their time, and then I know it'll benefit them in the long run, guaranteed. Like a year of athletic development is massive. So yeah, that's what the app can do. So we're going to start getting coaches just gently making sure that we can get the athletes to do it because it'll benefit themselves and they'll thank us for it at the end.
I've got so many questions to sort of go through, but I just keep getting drawn off to the conversation we're having already. But is there a way of like almost competition in there as well in the app? Because that's always something that drives people a lot and drove us. Like even, you know, playing professional rugby, going to the gym, and when they got the speed gates out, everyone would always get excited. The S&C coach is like, listen, boys, you've got to make sure, take it easy, warm up into it. But no way, boys were just going flat out through the gates. Is there an element of competition in there as well?
Yeah, so they do leaderboards, but the leaderboards are kind of what I said for like sessions completed. So it's more of a work ethic thing where I would then, which we can collect the data ourselves and do it, but I would load. I've done it on a different platform where you can have, say, like typical metrics would be, if you're just looking at strength, for example, and this might not be applicable to all the sports. You know, if you're a golfer, I wouldn't be too concerned about your bench press, for example. But like say bench press, chin, trap bar deadlift, for example. Be great to create a strength leaderboard. Then you could do them like depending on what your sport is. If you're a swimmer, then a chin is going to be pretty specific to you because pull strength is going to be quite important. So it can, I guess you can factor it per sport. But yeah, that would be something cool to introduce. So we have leaderboards at the minute, but not performance. But if there is a need for that, we can obviously it's quite simple to pull the data out and create those, no problem.
Yeah, and that's where I'll be rock bottom. Listen, there's quite a few of you in here, and I know there's a comment section. We won't be looking at it straight away because I'll get completely lost in there as well. So make sure you chuck your questions in there, and we'll be picking a few of them towards the end if we've got enough time. So fire those in, and we'll pick up on those and try and get Sam to answer some of those. Just in terms of this forum tonight, Sam, there's plenty of aspiring athletes in here that will be looking to go to the States over the next couple of years. And, there's people from football, rugby, swimming, track and field, golf, plenty of other sports. Just some sort of words of advice, from what you learned when you were younger to any of the aspiring athletes in here to get them to the top of their sport.
Good question. There's parents I speak to now a lot. They find out what I'm up to now. And they say, look, I've got Sam, and it's normally rugby. Sam, I've got a boy who plays rugby. I think he could be really good, but I don't know if he wants it. And I'm like, oh. And then what advice would you give me? And I said, right, do you want my honest advice or do you want my plastic advice? She went, go on then, give me honest advice. I said, if that's his attitude, he's probably not going to make it. Because to get to the very top in sport, it's not easy. Like there's going to be loads of bumps along the way, whether it's a coach you dislike, whether it's injury, whether it's lack of form, all these sorts of things, selection. There's going to be loads of hurdles along the way. Now, yes, you need like a parent or maybe a coach or a friend who can help nudge you and motivate you, but they're not going to be there all the time. You have to be intrinsically self-driven big time, and you've got to really want it yourself, because there's going to come a sticky point and you're going to go, I give up. And I think the players who get to the top, they might get to one of those hurdles I just mentioned, and they think, this is what I would think, and this is what I advise. Just recognize that hurdle is an opportunity when a load of other athletes are just going to give up. So you sort of recognize, right, this is a tough moment. It's come to me now, whether, like I say, it's an injury selection thing. Other people would give up, but that's not me. I'm going to keep going. And every time you keep going over a hurdle, you just keep going and keep getting yourself off your backside out of bed to do the skill sessions, to do the training sessions, to eat the correct food, to make sure you recover and sleep. If you can do all these things for the long term, you just leapfrog opposition. and you've got to do it relentlessly. You can't rely on people to keep pushing you and keep doing it. And it's like the old saying, you can take a horse to water, but you can't always make it drink. You've got to have a deep burning internal desire to want to do it yourself. Like I say, First Point will support you as much as they can, but they can't be there to hold your hand. You have to still be self-motivated. So if you're expecting someone to drag you along and get you through, it won't be enough. You need to have that work ethic. And that is the one thing that the higher up you go, coaches will suss that out pretty quick. Because when they have selection meetings, they're talking like, what's he like? And they'll go, yeah, he's talented, but I don't know if he wants it. I don't know if he's tough enough, but he's got the resilience, And they go, he hasn't got the character. So you need to have the character to go deep and to go long, So I think that would probably be the advice I would give, like you just didn't stumble into a professional rugby environment and play for Scotland by just had a lucky break. It's years of effort, So I think you need to recognise that it's years. It's not a weeks thing. Those who are willing to dedicate themselves for years, they're often the ones who get to the very top.
Yeah, and I remember you saying the last time we were in, and there might be some people that listened to the last one we did of these, and you were saying you probably weren't the most skillful player out there by far, but you had the right work ethic. And I even get asked a lot of times about players that I see in academies and stuff like that, and I think you can tell a lot straight away from the attitude of the player, the way they hold themselves, the way they talk, the way they communicate with other players before you even look at the way they actually play rugby, and then you can put that across many sports. A lot of coaches will look at the attitudes of people, won't they?
Yeah. Oh, mate, attitude's a big part of the battle. Like Cardiff at rugby level now, we've got rid of a lot of good, talented players, but they just didn't fit. They didn't have the right character. They were they would settle for second best. And it's like you don't want that in your environment or in your culture. So don't get me wrong. I'm not saying there's a very fine line. You don't go and speak to your coaches and say, why aren't I playing? I think I'm the best person, because then that's misconstrued to arrogance.
Yeah.
Just keep your head down, work hard, and when you get your moment, you take it with two hands. But just be patient, and when you get your moment, take it. So hopefully I've explained there what that means. I don't mean it means you go in with this. Like, you can have an unbelievable amount of confidence in yourself. I did. I never said publicly what I thought of myself, because it would come across as quite arrogant. But I always kept my head down. I made sure I just did the work. And when I got my moment, I took my chance. But you need to have that belief for sure. But there's a fine line between arrogance and belief, So make sure you don't spill into that arrogant one. Just work hard, earn your moment, and then when you get it, you take it with two hands.
Yeah, I think the fact that some of the people who are being here, they're taking the step in the right direction, that they're looking at the opportunities with First Point, looking at using stuff like your app. They've obviously got the right attitude. So I think the majority of anyone in here listening to this will have that in abundance. One of the key things we've heard you talk about, and things you can do away from the gym and training ground in your development. So just give us your insights on that, Sam.
This is like a good one. I did a podcast episode once, and we called it Elite Behaviors. So, and I thought it was a really important. It was with a coach who I really respected, who coached me a lot, and we basically said like who are the best pros that we ever played with, and it's no coincidence that they're the ones who often have the most success. It's not always the case, but I'd say this is more often than not the case. There's always a maverick in sports, but more often than not, this is the case. And I'm one of these people, because I'm not a maverick. I have to work hard to be good at something. We said it's not always like, say you team train for 1 or 2 hours a day. Maybe you have a resistance training session and a recovery session. Like you might, actual physical hard training might have 2 or 3 hours a day max, really. But we always said it's not the 2 or 3 hours that you're in training. Yes, that's important. You obviously apply yourself. The people almost what they did outside of those 2 or 3 hours. So the other 21 hours of their working day, what did that look like? And that often was the best pros. And that's what we talk about. That's the elite environment. That's the elite behaviors that you're looking for. And it's the things like your recovery, your diet, nutrition, your sleep, all these things that can influence your career. Now, the one thing I don't want to scare people is you don't have to live like a monk. I'm not saying that you've got to be on point every minute of every day. You don't. But I just mean that the guys who do their analysis, who do a little bit extra skill work, who get on the laptops and analyze opposition, who, like I mentioned, all the things, take their supplements religiously, like all these things that these people do outside of the 1 or 2 hours of training, that's what being elite is about. Because there's lots of people out there who train for 5 hours a week. You only have to go to your local gym to see that. It's like, well, they all haven't made pro sports people. I know some haven't wanted to, but the point being is it's the things outside of that they're not willing to do. And I think that's where you get your top pro. It almost becomes, being a professional sports person becomes a lifestyle that you have to adopt. And there's people who come into the pro world, I'm sure you've seen it. They're not very good professionals because they're not good outside of those 2 or 3 hours, like I've mentioned. And they have quite like fairly short-lived careers. You know, they might have 2 or 3 years in the limelight, then they kind of wilt away a bit. But those guys who are really good pros tend to have longevity in their sport, and they play it for a long time, and they have more consistent success. And that's what I would say is, I think that is transferable across all sports. You know, you only got to look at the guys who are very good pros. Like, I know people will say, well, Finn Russell, Sam. So for Scottish fans, Finn Russell isn't like that. Yeah, look, Finn probably might not value his strength and conditioning as much as other players. But I tell you what, from what I've heard, the diligence that he takes to prepare in training, it does a lot more than people think, you know. And it's no coincidence that he's one of the world's best 10. So that's what I would. That's how I would explain how you need to adopt those elite behaviours and adopt that lifestyle if you do want longevity at the top.
Yeah, no, and you're right there with Finn. The amount of work he did off the field was crazy, and it was almost a thing that he tried to hide from people, and it was a strange one because he had this sort of persona outside, and people looked from the outside and going, "Oh, you know, he's this relaxed guy that's so laid back," and it almost tried to live up to it. So when he did all his sort of homework, it would be a laptop back to the room, but he started it as he's got more mature and grown as a person. He's opened up to that and said, no, I'm the first one that's back with the laptop, going through stuff on the bus, talking to boys. Why have you been doing this? This is what we should be doing. So he's a perfect example of someone like that. Just for again, some of the people in here, or that haven't got access to the top facilities or academy support, they've got this perception that a top athlete, to be the best, you've got to have a lot of money, you've got to have the best facilities. But that's not true, is it? What can people do in here that they maybe don't have the best access to gyms and access to certain coaches? What could they do a little bit more themselves?
Yeah, so say it depends on the demands of your sport, for example, but it costs no money to be able to run an unbelievable 5K and be super fit. That costs no money. All that costs is work ethic. And there was a quote that one of the best captains I had, Paul O'Connell, you would have played against him, and he always said, be the best at everything that requires no talent. Like when it comes to game day. So just the way you apply yourself, your work ethic, takes absolute zero money. All it takes is just effort. And that's all it takes. So and by the way, physically, you can get a lot of great physical adaptations from bodyweight training. You only got to Google calisthenics, and you can get yourself a really good workout from just bodyweight alone. And like I said, you can get fit from just running. Skill development. If you're a football player or you're a rugby player, you need to be able to afford a ball, maybe a mate. You can still skill train. So I think people in Wales, for example, rugby is a completely working class game. The boys think I'm posh. My dad was a fireman. My mum was part-time. I lived in a 3-bed semi, shared a bedroom with my brother. I'm not posh. I went to a normal state school, but I never blamed anything. But I used to think I used to watch these people achieving things when I was young. And I'd be like, why not me then? What? I can do that. I never let those boundaries hold me back. So if you don't go to a swanky private school, which costs a lot of money, which I certainly didn't, that's not going to hold you back. And if anything, and as I mentioned, the mental side of the game of sport is way more important. The athletic side can come second. You can get fit and strong in a year. You can, those things can happen, but you don't develop character, in overnight. That's a long-term thing, and I think that's the most important thing. We sort of touched upon the personalities and the character that you need and resilience at the top. As long as you have that, then eventually, once you do come across the right facilities or right service provision, like First Point provide, then you'll have all the tools you need to succeed.
Yeah, there's plenty out there now. Now, this one's slightly difficult for me because there's a couple percentages here: 90-10 and 18-15 rule. So I know that I was probably not quite as close to this as you were, but with all the distractions going on at the moment for young people that are in here, they obviously want to lead a bit of a social life as well. They're planning on doing big things, going to university, but best years of your life. Just talk to me about the 90-10, the 18-15 rule, because I could disagree with you here, because I got mine completely wrong, the wrong way round, I think.
No, yeah. So basically, if you talk about social life, and this is I remember having a bit of advice when I was 15. I was playing, I was 15, 16, playing in the 16s for Wales. And we had an ex-player come in. Oh no, he was like a president or something. And he was like, look, if you want to make it to the top, you've got to ditch your friends, ditch your social life, you've got to dedicate yourself. And I was like listening. And then as time went on, I look back at that advice, I'm like, that is terrible advice. Terrible. You still have to, must keep your friendship group close. If you've got a good group of friends, you can spend time with them. That's like one of the most important things you can do, because sport's important, but you still need like a social circle to be part of. Mate, it de-stresses us, like to be part of a friendship group and to socialize. You can't just be on your sport all the time. That's why I call it the 85-15 or 90-10 rule. Yeah, you're on it 90% of the time. Like, if you're eating 5 times a day, 10 meals over 2 days, 8-9 meals are good quality meals. 1 meal is a nice cheat. Don't worry about it. It's fine. Like 90-10. And then, if somebody's going out for a night out and it's like 2 days for a game, you go, look, right, pick and choose my moments. I probably can't do that one because alcohol is detrimental, proven physiological detrimental effects. So you can't do that. But if you play the game, you're like, look, I haven't got a fixture now for 8 days. My mate's going out. Yeah, actually, this is a good time. I can do it. So you just pick and choose your moments smart. So I think some people just go like YOLO, just like you only live once. Sorry, I'm not sure if that's a Welsh thing. You only live once. They just go like I got to do every social event. I'm like, well, that's going to hold you back. It's going to hold you back because alcohol, for example, staying up late all the time. Once a blue moon, like once every couple of weeks, fine. When you're young, get it. Need a social life. I enjoyed myself when I was young. Very important you still do that. But you have to realize if you want to do things that other people haven't done, or want to achieve things that other people haven't done, i.e., play pro sport, then you've got to be willing to do what most aren't willing to do. Like it's just a fact. Otherwise, everybody would just do it. So there's got to be some element of sacrifice. But like I say, never neglect that side of your life. You must keep your friends and social life going. That's actually really important for when times get tough, because you'll wish they're there and you'll be glad you didn't get rid of that friendship group. So I want to make sure I make that clear. But you have got to appreciate as well, there is going to be some times you might have to make a sacrifice. You think, I shouldn't be here. And you've got to prioritize your performance in your sport.
Yeah, like you said, I mean, when you do start making it towards the other end to more professional level, then they're the ones that you'll go to for a bit of advice as well, because they're always the ones that are most honest as well, and also stepping away from the sport, like you said earlier, you've got to be able to go and socialise with mates. Most of my mates never had anything to do with rugby, don't understand it. And it was almost a breath of fresh air.
Yeah, so my mates all football, so I loved it. Like, my closest friends are all still my schoolmates now. I still, and they all like football, so it's great. They got no clue about rugby, like they can't even talk to you about it because they got no clue. Like, and it's great, And every now and then they'll say, "Oh, look, we're going out." This is when I was younger. I'd be like, "Oh yeah, great, I could do that one." If it's like local, but if we're going into like city centre, I'm like, "Oh, I can't be seen there. Sorry." Yeah, I'll catch you next time in my off season or during Christmas break or something. Like, I'm not doing that now, because when I was young in the academy, I wanted to show that I was at the best pro in the environment and that I had all the characteristics that would make a good professional. So there was times I had to sacrifice some of those bits. Then, it sounds a little bit ruthless, but then some mates might take the mick at me and go, "Oh, you're not coming out, are you? Whatever." And they'd say, take the mick at me. Then in my head, I'd be like, "Well, I'm going to play for the Lions when I'm in my young 20s. And, what are you doing?" So then I'll be laughing. So that was just like my attitude. I was just like a little bit, I'll be honest, I was quite obsessed about making it to that level. I'm not saying everyone needs that mindset, but I was of that mindset from quite a young age. And I looked at my mates and I was like, none of them are doing what I'm doing. Like, none of them are running around late at night, 9 o'clock at night, doing like 5-10Ks to be super fit, or saving up all their pocket money so I can buy some secondhand weights to stick in my garage so I can get strong, like one staying back after school sessions so I could practice like whatever, catch pass. Like, no one's doing this. I'm like, if I keep doing this for the long term, my God, I'm going to overtake some people, like, and I'll be the best, you know. So that was just my mindset, you know. But like I said, I did enjoy myself along the way. I wasn't a monk, you know. So but just getting that balance right.
Yeah, it was interesting. I spent some time with the world's strongest man the other day, Tom Stortman, 3-time
Thought
world's strongest man, and he's autistic. He said, everyone thought, I wouldn't make anything of himself, and he's like a 3-time world's strongest man now. And he said he had a lot of mates that were like, won't make much of themselves, but found this way of just channeling that energy into it. But equally, as you said, because you think, well, it takes to train to be the world's strongest man, but knows how to get that balance right. So they were brilliant. If you need to go and look at any stories.
But we've been around long enough. And like, I know to some teenagers listening, they might just think you're just saying it, right? I haven't met one successful person who's made it to the top of sport. Like you might say you enjoy yourself, but you trained like 600-700 sessions a year, where most other people wouldn't. They just would have, I can't do that. You know, people go, it's easy being a rugby player. Like, do pre-season. Just do one pre-season. Mate, you did about 15 pre-seasons. I'll tell you now, most people aren't tough enough to do that, you know, and you did it. So I think you don't give yourself enough credit. Like, yes, for rugby standards, you would have had a good laugh, but compared to everyone else, you were extremely good pro. There's no one in sport, no one in the business world who hasn't applied themselves on the minimum like 80-20 rule, you know, who makes it. You know, you've got to prioritize what you're set out to achieve, you know. So that's just a common denominator across all successful people.
Now, this is an interesting one. Social media, because it's become a huge part of, life, but also being an elite athlete. Some people leverage it really well. Some people use it in different ways. You're seeing a lot of stuff going on at the moment, the likes of, players getting to the ends of their career, trying to find a way actually to make a living out of it. The likes of Danny Care recently. If you look at rugby, there's in the States, they've got NIL, which is name, image, likeness. So for the athletes going over to the colleges, they can now make money out of their image and social media, etc. So give me a little bit of advice for aspiring athletes there and all the little different avenues into that.
Yeah, good one. Social media is great. It's great for your brand. You should get used to using it. I think it can be very beneficial for you. Like, you're very good on it. Like, it's great for your brand. But I think if I had some really important bits of advice with social media, if you wouldn't take, and I think people are referring to criticism now on social media because you're so easily accessible to get criticism. And I used to think this, like, if you wouldn't take advice off them, then why on earth are you taking criticism? So, like, people who are negative on social media, they when they come at you, it always comes from an inferior position. Nobody of credible source is ever, like, for example, yourself, myself, nobody who is doing what we do but much better has ever criticized us, because there's no need to, because they're very self-assured in themselves. It's actually people who are very they've got a lot of self-doubt, probably very jealous. They're the ones who take to negativity on social media. So you actually got to learn. When I get criticism on social media now, I actually see those comments. I think, I actually feel sorry for you. If you need to take the time and energy to criticize me, there's a lot more going on in your life than just that negative tweet. They got a lot of probably demons they're fighting, and the jealousy or anything like that. And also, the higher profile you get, you might end up, if you're a successful athlete, you'll build a big social following. And this is one thing you have to accept. You have to accept this no matter how much charity work you do, how nice you are. This is the one thing that you just have to accept, is you will never, doesn't matter who you are, how good you are at your sport, you will never, ever please everyone, ever. There's always going to be someone who doesn't like you. I'm not saying they're correct, but there's going to always be someone that doesn't like you. I like to think I'm a nice person, right? I treat people well. I do charity work. I donate to 5 different animal charities. Like, I think I'm a pretty decent person, right? I get criticism. Like, I have to laugh at it. I'm thinking, like, are you serious? Like, this person's obviously got something like really negative going on with themselves personally. Like, so I just think those things, take it with a pinch of salt. If you wouldn't take advice off them, never take criticism, and just accept you're never going to please everyone. Particularly pro sports person, there's going to be so many eyes on you. Every 1,000 people, there's going to be a big handful of those who don't like you, no matter how hard you try. Just accept that and ignore it, and just focus on being the best version of you.
Yeah, too right. And there is a brilliant way to build up brands. And even at a young age, like, you look at now, some of the biggest stars are social media stars. But in terms of athletes going over there, they can start to do all sorts of stuff. You do some videos on the SW7 stuff of, training ideas and things like that. So you see a lot of kids now doing that sort of stuff. In terms of role models, Sam, aspiring to be like someone at the top of a sport, I'd probably fire this away from rugby. Was there any other sort of role models you had that weren't rugby players, maybe that you looked up to that sort of spurred you on?
Do you know what? I had role models, but I'll tell you one documentary which, if anyone wants to watch it, I'd endorse them to watch it. Now you'll know this guy. He was a multiple Tour de France winner, Lance Armstrong. Now, yes, he was caught for doping. I think all the cyclists back then were doping, by the way. So I'm not saying I endorse the doping, but I listened to his documentary. God, this must be going back like 15 years ago. And it doesn't matter he's not competing now. This guy is one of the most successful cyclists that we've ever had. Mate, watch that documentary for an hour, like Lance Armstrong documentary. After an hour, however long it was, 2 hours, I was just like, oh my God. I just could not believe the mindset that he had just to succeed and win. Not in the sense that he went, I'm going to take drugs to win. It was just even everything outside of the drugs. Take the drugs away, you just saw his diligence to train and his work ethic and his mindset. I was blown away by his mindset. I was like, oh my God, no wonder he was the best. My God. Like I thought I was determined and motivated. And I saw that and I thought that's amazing. And that just really resonated with me. And I think you see a lot of the top icons in their sort of sport. They kind of have that. Tiger Woods is another one. I remember being young and he dominated golf for like 10 years. And he had the most successful 10-year period of golf has ever had. Ridiculous. Broke every record. And then he was like out for a year with a back op, and he comes back and plays like a Masters and comes second, which is like unheard of, like just insane. Yeah. And the interviewer was like, "Oh, you've come second. It's amazing. Like it was like party time for him." And he went, "I didn't win." And she was like, "Yeah, I know, but you come second. It was just unbelievable." He went, "I didn't win." And I was just like, I love that. Like, I love it. And I'm like, no wonder he's the flipping best in the world. He just refuses to come second in anything. And like, don't get me wrong, you will come second in things. It's just life. But if you have that attitude, you will win a damn sight more than 99% of people just by being like that, So, yeah, Lance Armstrong was probably one person who maybe I saw that and it resonated with me because I thought, I'm a bit like that. And I didn't feel alone. I was like, it's okay to actually be marginally obsessed on making it, And I'm like, yeah, if he's doing it, then and he's successful, I'll carry on and I'll do it as well. So, but he really blew me away with his mindset, and I love that. Same with Michael Jordan. That's a recent documentary on Netflix, The Last Dance. There's obviously it is about the Bulls, but I mean it's centered around Michael Jordan. But you see his mindset as well, and a lot of people left that feeling inspired. I finished watching that documentary series thinking, like gutted, like I could have done more. I was not like him. I was like, and I was a bit gutted. I was like, shit. That was inspirational in the sense. No wonder he was the best. So like, yeah, don't. My point being is when you're watching this, don't get to our age, my age, 35, and think, maybe I could have squeezed out a little bit more out myself, my teammates. I don't have any regrets, I think when you listen to those people, you think, wow, fair play to you. Didn't leave.
Yeah, I've watched so many of those, Borbs, and been like, why wasn't this around when I was a bit younger? Because if I had watched some of these, I would have, put in that little bit more. You watch them now and you go, like, it is crazy. Even when you talk about those Tour de France boys as well, that Unchained, the series at the moment on Netflix. I mean, I'm not sure how they put themselves through that. We thought rugby was tough. People go, cycling, it can't be that hard. That's another ball game. That is another ball game. We'll move on because I know we're rattling through these questions, but this one's quite an important one, I suppose, because not only the First Point find athletes that are looking to go to the US and they'll apply or they'll get picked up at trials, but there's also kids that don't make it in academies. Let's say, they've done work with Fulham in the past, and kids get to the end of their career with the academy of Fulham, 19 years old, and sort of like, well, what now? I know players that took up, Johnny Matthews, that's record try scorer last season, scored 14 tries in the league. He only went professional at rugby, 26 years old. So for me, for anyone that's sat in here listening to this or watching it further down the line, and they're not in the first team or they're not quite at the top level at this stage in their career, you've got a bit of a view on that development between the age of 16 and 19, haven't you? How important is that for a sports person?
It's not how good you are when you're 15, 16, 17 that counts. No matter, it might be cool. You might go into your sixth form and play up a year or two, and you've got your local national under-18s cap, and you get a lot of respect from your peers. It's not how good you are when you're 17 or 18 that counts. It's how good you are when you're 20, 21 breaking into pro sport. And if somebody's ruled you out at 15, 16, 17, 18 years of age, no disrespect, it's someone's opinion, and no disrespect to this coach. There's a reason that they're coaching at under 18s or 19s level, and it's because they're not good enough to be coaching at top pro level, or they're still developing the skills to get to that point. So what they say is not gospel. So keep applying yourself. If someone turns you away, think, right, it's not important how good I am now. It's how important I am in another 2 years. Just don't give up. And too many people give up at 17, 18 because they think the advice they've been given is unanimous across the board. It's not. It's often just a handful at most, maybe one person's opinion. So look, if you're 23 or 24 and you've given it 5, 6 years and you still haven't made it, all right, unfortunately, you might have to smell the coffee. You weren't quite good enough. But if you're a teenager, please don't believe that until you at least get to your 20s and you've applied yourself for the long term. So like that's the advice I would give on that.
Sam, I know you've obviously, since linking up with First Point, I've looked into it. You will have seen a lot of the stuff over in the States, but in terms of some of the people in here potentially preparing to go over that, how exciting a prospect is it for someone to be able to go and apply their trade at any sort of level in the US and be an athlete at a university in a college in America?
If it wasn't for having a young family, I would have been really tempted to play in the MLR. I just want to experience America, like USA, and just like I absolutely love how sport fanatical they are, how much they put behind sport. Resources, people, finances. Like half my Instagram feed is just looking at sport facilities in like the US. And I'm blown away. Like it beats most pro facilities over here. The school facilities is insane. Spend £500,000 in the school gym, think nothing of it. It's just like it's ridiculous. And so I think to have the opportunity to get exposed to that, and I love the elitist mindset in America, in the US. I do love that. And I'm a bit one of those believers. I think if you want to be the best, you kind of have to try and experience the best, and I think America and the US do a very good job in that. So I think it's such an exciting time to go out there in a country who invests so much in their sport with so much resources to lean on and tap into. An amazing experience and opportunity for anyone who's able to go out there. So I think it's an awesome opportunity and pathway that First Point can provide. And if you can utilize that, then and you want to explore that path, and don't look back and think, oh my God, imagine 30 years ago I took that opportunity when I could have gone to the USA and done something. Like, just go for it. Because if you go for it for a year or two, you don't like it, still come back a very young person. You can try again in the UK. Do you know what I mean? Like, what you haven't got much to lose. So I think it's an amazing opportunity if that's what you want to do.
I promised I wouldn't do this, but I'm just sort of flicking through the questions, and we've got Ross at First Point sending us through some of the questions that he's picked out. But I think there's a really good one already, and it's just on imposter syndrome, because I know you're going to say exactly what I'm thinking already, but I still had it. Even in my 200th game at Glasgow Warriors, I'll be thinking, really, can I do this? Even in my 50th cap for Scotland, I'm like, oh, maybe I shouldn't be here. Some advice for someone that's sort of going over there, and they're asking the question here, if when they get over there and it's a bit of a culture shock or they've got imposter syndrome, what advice would you give there?
Well, I think imposter syndrome, and this is, I study leadership and I talk about leadership a lot now and performance. And you might be surprised to hear, but most people suffer with imposter syndrome. They might not admit it, but they all do. And I think it's a very good trait because it shows you have humility. And I think humility, particularly in team sports, is such a key characteristic. We've all seen the one person who's quite arrogant and quite loud who might play in a team sport. You might all pretend you like them, but deep down you think that guy's annoying. And they don't get very far. Like, the imposter syndrome is fine. And look, you might go out there and you might think, whoa, I'm a little bit off the standard here. It's like, look, that's okay. This is now when you prove yourself. And you're not going out there to be good in one day or to be good in 1 week. You're going out there to use the years you're out there to develop and to build your confidence. So with every training session, skill session, with every strength session, with every fitness session, you slowly become a better athlete and you build the evidence that you're becoming a better athlete. In turn, confidence naturally just snowballs. Confidence is something that has to be earned. You can't just click your fingers or do positive self-talk and have it. You can do positive self-talk once you've built up the evidence that you can do it. So once you know you're a brilliant athlete, and once you know, yes, I'm actually very competent at my sport and I'm very good at it, that's when positive self-talk comes in and you can talk yourself into confidence. But when you're young, you have to just understand you've got to build that confidence first through work ethic, through all the skills sessions and all the training units that you have to put together. After 6 months, you'll look back and you'll suddenly compare the position you're in psychologically compared to 6 months ago. And you'll be like, wow, I'm a lot more confident than I was 6 months ago, because you've had time in the saddle and you've got to earn it. So yeah, confidence is earned. If you're not feeling very confident or you think you have imposter syndrome, don't worry. Everybody has it, but you will get confidence naturally if you just put an effort in. And you'll always have, except like you've just said, Ryan, I was the same, you'll always have an element of imposter syndrome. That's a good thing, because it shows you're a humble person, you're willing to work hard, and you still want to get even better. If you didn't have it, you think you've made it. And that's often arrogance, So it's a good thing that you stay hungry, and I think it's a good trait to have.
It would always worry me when I was captain of Glasgow Warriors, and I'd look at some of the young guys that were coming through, and you'd chat to them before a game and say, "Oh, how you feeling? You feeling nervous?" And they go, "Nah." And I'd always be, "Oh, that's not a good sign. I don't like that. I'm not sure of that," because still, right up until that moment that the whistle was blown, the first kick was kicked off in the game, I'm still going through everything in my head, still panicking, still nervous, still worrying about everything.
Always. And I think it's not until you get to your late 20s when you're playing, you go, oh, this is normal. Because the boys are open and honest enough to admit it, all admit it. And you're like, I've played 200 pro games, I'm still feeling it, and I'm a good player. So obviously it's normal. It's just because you care, and that's a good thing.
Exactly. There'll be some people, a few more questions just getting fired in here. I know we've been going for a good 40 minutes already, so we appreciate your time, Sam. But how do you deal with recovery after a match? What's your best advice for recovery?
Yeah, good one. There's the physical and there's the mental. So for the physical, like the first thing I do is number one, refuel straight away. Best thing that the Welsh Rugby Union did was like we used to have these smoothies right after, full of like berries because they're like full of antioxidants, which is good for like inflammation. Like particularly a game of rugby, you're so banged up after a game. You just got to get those antioxidants in straight away. So we have like high protein, high carbohydrate. Protein good for muscle recovery, carbohydrate good for energy. Loads of berries in there, bang that down the hatch straight away. Just get that first initial spike of recovery. And then there'd often be like cold baths or hot cold bath, sort of contrast sort of recovery. Then you get a really good meal in you, like really high quality meal in, whether it's like with like rice and chicken and vegetables, maybe another hour after that initial smoothie. Try and get good sleep. Often, like you have to take caffeine, like for games. So sleep is obviously hindered, but sleep is the single best form of recovery. So if you have to take some sleeping aids to do that, then do that to get a good night's sleep. And the next day, switch off. That's the mental side of it. Don't try not to relive games in your head or watch footage. Try and escape the sport that you're in. Whether it's, for me, it was like spending time with the family as I got older, or it was walking the dog in greenery, just getting out the way, away from your mobile phone. You might get lost in a box set. Like just watch a box set and get lost in like 2-3 hours of a good documentary that you're watching. Just be able to switch off mentally, because then when you get back to your sport on the Monday or whatever day it is, then you're ready to flick that switch and you can give a lot more energy and you're back on. So that's how I would sort of couple the physical and the mental, and I make sure I do that sort of every 24 hours. And once you've had 24 hours, like, right, I'm ready to get back now and fix what happened. And if you lost, for example, let's fix what went wrong. If you won, right, how do we get even better? But you need that time to physically recover and mentally switch off from your sport as well. You can't just live it every single day. You'll burn out. So making sure that you recover well physically and you switch off mentally, I think, is really important.
It's interesting to hear you speak, because when I ask these questions, and I ask that question of how do you recover after a match, it's not just you're talking about the physical side, it's the mental side. Like that's a huge part in the game nowadays. It's a huge part in all sports, whatever sport you're in. So this here, and I'll ask you this in two parts, but advice for mentally preparing for a big game. How do you best prepare yourself for a big event or a big competition that you're going into? And one thing I suppose that I've learned is I was always Jack the Lad, but there's so many people who do so many different things, and we're pretty lucky in professional sport that the boys would open it up and you'd see them trying all different sides of things. You'd see people, getting ready for games in different ways. But visualization was a massive thing when I was playing, and we started to bring that in actually as a team. So how would you prepare mentally for a big event? And did you do any of that visualization?
Yeah, Joe, I'll give you a really good example of that. So like Again, like two ways. So to get to feel mentally prepared. Look, if I put an exam paper in front of you now and said, right, do the exam, you're gonna go, whoa, 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 what are you doing? You've had zero preparation. So of course you're going to be very anxious about it. So number one is the preparation side. If you do all the training that you need to do, then you're going to suddenly feel very prepared for games. A good psychologist said to me when I was playing one of my biggest games, it's not just Sam Monday, Tuesday's training and Thursday and Friday's team run that got you ready for this game. This is 15 years of a bank of training that you've built up to become the athlete you are today. So obviously the older you get, the more you do that. So every week I make sure I tick every box, whether it was doing my extras at skills, doing my prehab with the physio, getting in my weight sessions, eating well, analysis sessions, whatever. I tick all those boxes. When I play in the game, right, from a physical perspective, I'm as ready as I can be because I've done all the preparation I need. Once you've done that, then this is what I find, right, what you said, the visualization is really important. So I had the best sports psych coach give me a really quick exercise I could do, and I'll share it now for you guys. So when I was playing a team sport, and it's because I was a little bit anxious about playing. It was playing against Ireland when I was young, when I was 20, and I was on the bench, and I felt quite nervous about it. So what he did, he made me close my eyes. He said, right, imagine yourself, and it would just say I was just carrying the ball in rugby. You go, right, close your eyes, and imagine that you're carrying the ball from the referee's perspective into the opposition, and it's very explosive and dominant, and you knock someone over, and it's a really good carry. You're looking at yourself so I'm imagining now I'm looking from a referee's perspective, my eyes closed. I'm watching myself in a red whale shirt fly into someone, let's just call it Scotland, fly into a Scottish player, knock him over, looking strong and aggressive. And I was like, right, he's like, take that same ball carry, but do it from the stand. So you're a fan watching in the stand. So I'd watch myself as if I was a fan, receive the ball, bang, accelerate, knock someone over, bowl into contact, present the ball back. He's like, right, you've done that one. He said, now you're the opposition. So now I imagine I was the opposition. I saw myself catching the ball in front of me, just eyeballing me, just square, running into that person, looking really explosive, big, strong. I watched it through and I just do maybe that skill. So you do that through 3 different perspectives for a ball carry. There might be another one for a tackle, and you'd watch it. That's I've explained that now in 1 minute. That's a 2-minute exercise I do for a game. I do that before a lot of games. I'd imagine maybe 2 different skills. Could be a tackle, could be a cat running with the ball. I do it through a referee, the opposition, and the fan. And you finish with the opposition because that's the most intimidating one. I opened my eyes after that 2-minute exercise. And I'm like, wow, give me that ball. It was a really good visualization technique that I learned. So yeah, that was good for me from a contact perspective. I imagine you could use that from a skill perspective, whether it's tennis, if you're a tennis player, imagine that sort of first serve that you want to deliver, and you do that same exercise, but with a serve, for example. You can apply it across all sports. So that was probably the best visualization technique that I used for games. I found it very effective.
I've just written most of those points down for my golf swing.
If it goes backwards, don't blame me.
Do you play golf, Wolves?
Do you know what? I used to very averagely, but now I've got 3 kids and about 4 jobs I'm juggling, so I got no time for golf. But I will pick it up when they're all in full-time school, I think.
I'll tell you what, that's one place you can get frustrated. I don't know whether the visualization will help me there. Listen, there's been loads of really good questions. I'm sorry, we've got one more here, and then we've got to cut this off because it's been brilliant so far, Sam. Just last one here, just in terms of someone recovering from an injury. What advice would you give a young athlete in terms of trying to recover from an injury and get back to full fitness?
Yeah, I had 2 operations when I was a teenager, and too many people I've met go, "Oh yeah, I think I could have made it, but I had an operation on my ankle and they didn't pick me." And I'm nodding along, but in my head I went, "It didn't stop me," because as I mentioned, there's going to be hurdles that come along. Look, getting injured is a normal hurdle that is going to come across your plate, whether you might be 15 when you come across it, you might be 19, you might be 24 and be quite lucky, but it's going to come across your table at some point. So just that's that hurdle when I said, recognize that this is a moment, somebody else will be dealt that card, could be next week or in 6 months' time. You're all going to be dealt that card of injury. It's normal, it's sport, it's impossible to go through a full career without getting injured. Just recognize that, look, okay, this is normal. Now's my time to deal with this injury. I'm going to focus on all the other things that I can while I'm injured, that I'm able to. And so when I come back, I'll be even better than I was before. And you can come back even better. if you don't waste your time and you apply it properly. So injury's normal. Don't waste your time being injured. Make the most of it. Come back a better athlete. Just be patient. It's frustrating, but everyone's gone through it, and all the top people who've made the top have all gone through it and not let it derail them. So don't let it derail you. It's just normal. It's your time to deal with it. Deal with it properly. Don't complain like other people would, because that's what quitters would do. So just don't be that person. Just keep going. You'll come back better than.
I always felt that probably the hardest and the most difficult times as a professional athlete were when you were injured, because the amount of work you had to put in whilst you were injured, and they were upskill you in everything in terms of hand-eye coordination stuff. They'd have us out with tennis balls. The boys would be going home way before the injured boys, and everyone was still there working away. So there's always stuff you can do. There's always other parts of your game that you can work on. There's, like you said, the mental stuff, but exactly the same. 4 shoulder operations. It was all about, right, let's do as much legs as possible. Let's try and get explosive as possible with arms strapped to you and things like that. So there is always a way. There is always a way.
I'll be honest, look, it's tough when I know what some people think. Like we've all been in that position where we've come out of the sling for the first day, and I'm thinking in 5 months' time, I'm hoping to play against Scotland in the Six Nations, where the average size of their forward is like 17, 18 stone. I can't even wash my armpit without pain, and somehow I'm meant to be tackling pads. Like, we all have those feelings like, how on earth am I going to get back there? But it's baby steps every day, and I promise you, if you stick to the baby steps, like after 4 months, then and suddenly it goes into movement, and then you start doing rehab in the gym, then you start pushing light weights, and then you actually start seeing muscle build up again. You think, well, hang on, I'm coming back. Then you start doing contact prep with pads, then you start doing bone on bone contact, then you go. By that point, you're chomping at the bit to get back out. So again, it's similar. Like you slowly build that confidence. You'll be on zero confidence on day one. That's normal. Everyone goes through it. We just appreciate it's a long-term thing. And the baby steps that you take, if you listen to your coaches and your physios, that confidence will naturally grow, and you will get back to normal, and you'll get back to baseline, if not better, in time. Just accept that it's normal. So yeah, we all go through those negative thoughts, and it's frustrating. But stick to the process, and you'll get there, no problem.
Warbs, I've got to ask you before you go, because there's a few rugby fans in there, I'm sure. How are Wales going to go? Autumn Test coming up, and obviously Six Nations. How are they going to be faring?
Not very well.
Hard. That's the hardest question of the evening, isn't it?
It's hard to answer because it hurts me in here. No, I think Wales realistically are. I think where they came in the Six Nations last year, 6th, is an accurate reflection of where we are in Europe. And I haven't seen, they were decent against Australia. There was improvements, but have they improved enough to overtake Scotland, England, Ireland, France, possibly Italy? I don't think so. I don't think so right now. I think it's a natural cycle of sport. There's going to be some ups and downs. You're going to have successful years. You're going to have some bleak years. I think Wales just going to have to, and fans are going to have to just buy their time for a couple of years. So I look at our quality of player compared to some other teams in the competition. We're not going to be challenging for titles for the next few years. I don't think so. For us coming 4th or 3rd is a success, I think, and it's a bit disappointing to say that that's where we're at. That's just the reality of Welsh rugby at the minute.
Good man. Well, listen, Sam, we appreciate your time. Thank you so much. I know everyone in here, there's plenty more questions to get through, but we'd be here all evening. Thank you so much for your time, and you continue to support with First Point USA. We love working with the SW7 Academy. I, for one, definitely need to get on the app as soon as possible. You can
have a golf program. We have a golf program. I get on the golf one if you want. So do that one. Yeah. Do you know what? As well, I just thought as well. There's going to be some people who are First Point clients. Like obviously, your talent managers are, and our talent managers are in contact with SW7. So if somebody is a client who did reach out for a question, didn't get it answered, just go through to your talent manager. They can then get in touch with SW7. I can answer questions, even if it's on email, to pass back to your talent managers. So always feel free to reach out. That's part of the service we'll provide.
Orbs, unbelievable as usual. And thank you very much for your time.